so we could share quick. Oh, let me see. I think before we start, not sure if everyone's heard, but we lost one of our own. Charles Boswell passed away. He was team lead with John. Great guy. I never got to meet him in person, but would be on our Zoom calls a lot. You remember him. So unfortunately, he passed away last week. So John, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Well, we don't really know too much right now. We don't even know when the services are. His family's in town. His ex-wife come in, and his daughter came in, and I understand his twin brother's supposed to be here today, but my understanding is that they plan on having a service out here at the National Cemetery. So we're kind of standing by. We've been working with the VA to get that all set up for him and everything, but
Okay.
that's about all we know right now. When I hear some more, I'll be sending out information to Amy and to Mike and to anybody else and let you guys know.
All right.
Oh, man, John, we're so sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Great guy.
He was a great guy, you know. I mean, he had a passion for healing waters. I mean,
Yep.
ask Amy about it. I mean, if he felt somebody was doing one of his vets wrong, he was on the phone to her in a heartbeat, and he didn't spare the horses when he talked to her sometimes. So, but he will be sorely missed.
Yep. We'll do the fisherman's last prayer, where I kind of looked it up and I thought it was really nice. Where it says, I pray that I may live to fish until my dying day. And when it comes to my last cast, I that most humbly pray. When in the Lord's great landing net and peacefully asleep, that in his mercy I be judged big enough to keep. So thanks, Charles. Great having, time with you and tight lines, and we'll see you on the other side eventually. So
Amen.
Amen.
So again, with that, it is sad, but let's go fish in his honor. And so we decided we're going to do some bluegill bugs today. So I know Jim and John both said they're going to be tying. I've got something ready. We get done a little bit early, but John, I think you wanted to call dibs to go first.
Oh yes, I saw an email from Jim say he might be a little late. So
Yeah.
this is a quick one. So Jim, give me about 5 minutes and then you can take it.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
All right.
The bug I'm going to tie is called, it's one that's in my fly box that I carry with me, whether I'm carrying a Tenkara rod or a Western fly rod. It's one of the two flies that I always carry. One of them is this bug called the gurgler, in primarily yellow and white, sometimes in orange and sometimes in black. It never fails. I always catch fish on it. And of course, the other one is the Utah killer bug. But it's a very simple fly to tie. It's just made with foam rubber, a little bit of hackle, and a hook. And I usually tie it on a mustad. That hook right there, size 10 or a size 12. I don't go much smaller than a size 12. And here's what I use for. That's just a little, about a 2 millimeter thick piece of yellow foam that I cut to about 1/8 of an inch wide. And then just any old hackle that you happen to have handy. Okay, you can just kind of, I don't know if you can see that very well or not. That's just some grizzly hackle I had kicking around the desk tonight. So, all right, so let me switch cameras. Can everybody see that okay?
Looks good.
Yeah.
I decided to use my Dan Vise tonight because it's black and I know Amy prefers white. So, all right. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, I'm going to just use some plain old ordinary Danville yellow thread. Oops, can't see that. There we go. I don't particularly like this thread because it's pre-waxed, but and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start the thread at the front and wind it all the way to the back. And the only reason I do that is because I want to get a pretty good wrap of thread to make kind of because the bottom of this hook is going to be open. There's not going to be anything on it. So the thread kind of acts as a body. When the fish are looking up, they see that yellow body. And I'll stop right about the barb of the hook. And we'll get rid of that. And now I'm just going to take my foam and I'm going to cut an angle on it. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And I'm going to tie it in so that that angle is about a hook eye back from the front. There we go. And I'm going to wrap up to about the halfway point on the hook. And now I'm just going to tie in a little piece of hackle. And the hackle is not really important. I'm not even sure if it does anything significant. But I like it because it helps with the floatability a little bit. And the way I tie my hackle in is I trim it. You can see there it's trimmed. And I like to leave a little bit of the bare stem showing after I tie it in. That makes it a little easier to wrap. Okay. And I'm going to leave that there. And now I'm just going to wrap all the way forward and get it tight, really good and tight. There we go. And now I'm going to bring my thread back. And we'll go ahead and we'll put a couple of wraps of hackle around this thing. Not very much. I don't need very much. And the camera's getting in the way. There we go. Okay, let's just tie that down. Okay, bring the thread forward. And now we're going to just bring the foam rubber right over the top and tie it down. Cinch her down good and tight. And half hitch and we're done, except for the cutoff. Oh, I can call her back. And now I cut this foam with, again, like I did with the other piece. I cut it so I've got a little bit of a point on the top of it. There we go. And I do that. You can see this piece right here sticks up. And I do that, and most of the guys that I fish this with do it, because the way you're going to fish this is you're going to fish it out like a dry fly. You're going to throw it out, and you're going to leave it set. And for bluegill, one of two things will happen initially, we found. They're either going to take this thing just as soon as it hits the water. I mean, it's almost like they see it coming from the bottom of the lake, and they come after it. And as soon as it hits the water, they're on it. The other thing they'll do is they'll wait for about 30 to 40 seconds and look it over real good and then take it. So my technique is to throw it out. If I don't get a hit right off the bat, leave it set for about 15 seconds or so, and then just kind of bring it in. If I'm using my Tenkara, I just kind of pop it in. If I'm using my Western, I just take small strips and bring it in. So it's I'm kind of doing it like a popper for those of you that remember the old hula popper days. And when you do that, that little piece right there does a kind of a gurgle in the water, hence the name. So that's it. that is a gurgler. And like I say, I tie them in size 10s and 12s, and extremely effective, very effective fly for bluegill and even some crappie here in Nebraska.
Very nice.
What about the color of the foam?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Walt?
The color of the foam, do you have a preference?
The ones that I like best are yellow and white. However, I've caught them on black and gray and red and blue. And, you know, if I get bored of tying yellow and white, I'll tie something really strange. And I haven't tried it yet, but I know I might want to try, gluing some together and try a multicolored one and see if that works. And I haven't tried these on trout yet, but I have a feeling if the right color was here and if I put a little hair wing on it, it would be a pretty good caddisfly imitation. So, any other questions? All right, then.
Good fly, John.
Excellent.
Jim, you're up.
Okay, so hold on just a second here. I am going to pin myself. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to tie two flies tonight. One is called the Christmas tree bug, and the other one is a foam spider. They're both very simple flies, as all bluegill flies should be. Something that you can tie in less than 10 minutes because bluegill are generally very aggressive, and you don't have to be fancy. You don't need special colors. You don't need special anything. You just throw it out there and they take it. And I'm sure there's a gazillion bluegill flies out there that everybody has their favorite, and probably most of them work most of the time. So I'm going to start with the Christmas tree bug. And the Christmas tree bug is basically inspired by an old trout fly that was called the gray hackle. And a gray hackle was simply a fly. The tail was a red hackle fibers. The body was peacock curl, and the collar was grizzly hackle, and it didn't have a bead head. So when I first started learning to tie flies, somebody taught me the gray hackle, and it was great for bluegill. And I just kind of changed it up a little bit. And my 6-year-old daughter at the time said, "Hey, Dad, that looks like a Christmas tree." So there we have it. It's a Christmas tree bug. So the Christmas tree bug is also very similar to the captain. This is the captain here. Same hook, same beads, same techniques. The only difference is instead of a hackle tail, you have rubber tail. Instead of cactus chenille, you have a regular chenille. And instead of grizzly hackle, you have black hackle. But if you can tie one, you can tie them both. So what I use to tie these is red strung saddle hackle for the tail. For the body, I use, I'm not even sure how it's pronounced, Estaz. Let me see. Can't quite see it with the light there.
Yeah, it's kind of washed out.
So it's this brand name is Estaz, but here we go. But other manufacturers will call it cactus chenille or crystal chenille or whatever, but it is just simply a chenille with, well, you can see it's just got that sparkly material on it. And I usually use anything like olive, peacock, or black or whatever. For the hook, I use Umpqua U101 nymph hooks. They're one extra long, one extra strong. So extra strong means they're going to be heavier and they'll sink a little bit faster. But basically, you know, any nymph hook would work. I tie them in size 10. Occasionally I'll tie them in size 12 to catch the really small ones, but most of the time I'm tying them in size 10. And then a gold brass bead or a gold plated bead. So I'm going to start by taking my hook and putting it in upside down, and then I'm going to put the bead on. So I'll put the bead on with the small hole facing down. And come on. I should have put my magnifiers on here.
What is that thing you're using, Jim?
So this, here, once I get this on, I'll show you what it is. See, this was supposed to make it a lot easier. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, so it's just called the Bead Master. And it's got different size holes to pick up different size beads. You know, before I had this, I would just simply pick the bead up with my bodkin, and I'd put the bead on the bodkin, and then I'd take the bodkin and just put it down next to the hook and then let it drop down. But I dropped a lot of those things. And then at one time I was in the fly shop, and they knew that I tied for Project Healing Waters, and they said, hey, we just got this in for a sample, give it a try. And I gave it a try, and I've been using it ever since. So it's a really handy little tool.
I'll have to look that up. Thank you.
They gave it to you?
They did give it to me.
Shit, I spent $18 on it.
Yeah. Just happened to be the right time in the right place. What can I tell you? And then, so now I'm gonna mount the, lock the thread onto the hook. I am using 140 denier ultra thread, though I would also use 6/0 unithread. I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. I'm doing it in black. And then I'm going to take the saddle hackle feather, and I'm going to pull off some fibers. I don't know how many, but I strip about a ½ inch of fiber off. And then I'm going to tie this in, and I like to keep the tail fairly short, maybe half the length to 2/3 the length of the shank of the hook. So I'm going to go ahead and tie that in. And as usual, start with a soft wrap and then come back with a couple of hard wraps. I'm going to take my Estas or crystal chenille or whatever we want to call it, and I'm going to strip some fibers off the end, leave a little bit of clear rope or string or whatever that is, just to tie it in. And it's going to be the same thing. I'll start with a soft wrap and then transition over to harder wraps. And I'm going to bring the thread back to just before the bend of the hook, and then bring it forward to right behind the bead. And then I'm going to wrap this forward, and it would be similar to how you would wrap a woolly booger or whatever, close wraps, you know, touching wraps. You want to basically cover the entire shank of the hook. You want to leave a little bit of bare hook behind the bead. So I'm going to tie this off right now. Cut that off. Then I am going to take my grizzly hackle, and just like the chenille, I'm going to pull some of those fibers off. for a good tie-in point. Now, if you've left a little bit of space, but behind the bead, you should be able to take the stem and stick it right in under the bead. If you crowded it a little bit, you can just lay it beside the bead. So I tie it in with the shiny side facing me, with the idea that in the end, a lot of the fibers are going to be leaning backwards instead of forwards. And then just make collar. And as far as how many wraps, I just kind of play it by ear. It kind of varies from one piece of hackle to another, usually somewhere between 3 and 5. So that looks good. I'm going to tie that off. And then I'll cut the feather, and I cut the feather by using my scissors like a knife rather than getting in there with a point, so I don't chop off some of those fibers in there. I'll pull on the thread and I'll actually twist the bead, because sometimes the thread can get caught on the edge of the bead. Another couple of wraps, and the whip finish. 2, 3, 4, 5. And twist the bead one more time, and then cut the thread. And just like John's fly, less than 10 minutes, it's simple and it's deadly effective. I cast it out and I start bringing it in short strips, like maybe 2-3 inches at a time, or maybe 6 inches at a time. Occasionally, I'll bring it in very slowly with a finger over thumb kind of a retrieve, a steady retrieve, but that's all there is to that. So that's the wet fly that I tie for bluegill fishing. And then the dry fly is a foam spider. So this is kind of what we're shooting for right here. And it's not all that different than John's fly. So for a hook, I'll use a 1 extra long dry fly hook, size 10. I've already pinched down the barbs. For foam, I use that 2 millimeter foam that you can buy. You can buy it at your fly shop, or you can buy it at a whatever, a handy place. What are those handy?
Like Hobby Lobby and Michael's.
Yes, thank you.
Craft store.
So, and then I cut it into strips about 3/8 of an inch wide. Then I'll also cut a strip of very bright foam. I'll do that about 1/4 inch wide. I will make the body out of sparkle braid. It's called sparkle braid. So it's just, I'll make it in peacock color or green or blue or whatever. And for the legs, I use medium round rubber. So that's the stuff that comes in a long ribbon like this. And what I'll do is I'll cut off about 2.5 inches of it at a time. So I'll start by locking the thread onto the hook. I'm going to take my strip of foam. I'm going to do the same thing that John did. You cut a taper at the end. So it's got a little point there. I'm going to tie that in with a point. I'm going to tie it in so it's on the side facing me, because as you start tightening down the thread, it's going to want to take that material and turn it over. So I start on my side, and then on the end, it should be on the top. So I'm going to hold this into place. I'm going to bring that thread back just a little bit past the bend. And I'll come back. And I'll take my sparkle braid. I'm going to tie that in. And again, I'll bring that all the way back to the same point. Then I'll bring the thread to probably about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way towards the front of the hook. Then I'm just going to wrap the sparkle braid around there, again with close touching wraps. We just want to cover the shank of the hook. And then tie that off. Cut off the excess. I'll flip the foam over. I give it a little extra on the back. So you see there's just kind of a bend back here. And then I will actually hold the foam down, and with a couple of wraps, again, the first 1 or 2 fairly loose, and then I'll tighten it up. So like maybe 4 or 5 wraps. And then I'll pull it back and I'll do a few more wraps around the hook. And then I will wrap that again. And the reason that I keep wrapping around the hook every once in a while, I think it helps to keep this material from flopping around from side to side, which it doesn't make any difference if it does, but you know, there'll be less of it. It'll still flop around a little bit, but then I'll take the bright foam and I'll tie that in probably about 1/8 inch past the thread. I'm going to do the exact same thing, just a few wraps. And again, a couple of wraps around here, and then another couple of wraps back here. I will cut off the foam here. And the only purpose of this bright foam is basically just like a strike indicator, so you can see where it is on the water. And then I'm going to take the foam here. I'll put my scissors right on the front of the hook and use that for a cutting guide, and I'll cut the foam right there. Then I told you how I cut a couple of about 2.5 inches of rubber off. I'm going to separate out 2 pieces with 2 pieces of rubber each. So let me show you what we're doing here. Separate that out so you can see, hopefully you can see that is 2 pieces of rubber there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. And then I will tie one of these in on the close side. And I'll tie one of these in on the far side. And then again, I'm going to tie a few wraps here. Now, if you crowd your hook, you could just finish off your whip finish. Okay, I froze for a while. Anyway, yeah, you could finish this off right here, but I like to put the whip finish right at the end of the hook. So we'll do the whip finish here. Cut that thread off. Then I will take my bodkin and I will split those two pieces. So now we have 4 pieces. That's what happens when I don't put my magnifiers on. There we go. And then I just kind of trim the legs to whatever looks good for me. I like to have the front legs a little shorter than the back legs. But I honestly don't think it makes a whole lot of difference. And then I'll just take, I'll put head cement. I'll put it all along the bottom here. So I'll put it right on those threads at the bottom. I'll put it where the head is, and I'll put a drop where the legs meet the body on each side. That'll help hold those legs in a little bit, but honestly, you catch a few fish with it, and those legs some of them are going to pull out and whatever. But again, great bluegill fly. They'll take it on the surface, and they're less than a 10-minute tie, so you can knock those things out and have a whole bunch of them. And like I say, between this fly, the Christmas tree bug, and the captain, that's all I have in my bluegill box, and that's all I ever need. So any questions about those?
Very nice.
Very nice.
Nice. I have a comment about
Ever
putting
have
the
to,
beads on.
dress
I
those?
think a technique that I found that I like, and that's I just put a few beads out on the vise base, and I just pick it up with forceps so that you can then easily see, do you have the tapered opening or just the small hole? And then your eye will naturally, just like shooting through a peep sight, if you turn your vise or hook in it to where you can actually look through the hole in the bead and see the point on your hook, you just put it right down over the point of that hook, and your eye will naturally guide it as long as you're visually looking through that hole. And so it's easy to get the correct side of the bead that you wish on the hook first. And
Oh, that's a good system. I like that.
I found it to be a fairly natural. So unless you turn loose of it with your forceps, it works out well for me anyways.
Jim, do you dress those flies at all?
Yeah, I usually put some floating on it before I cast it out.
Do you use the grease floating or the desiccant?
Use the grease float.
Okay. Yeah, I do the same thing with my girdler. They usually get waterlogged after about 5 or 10 minutes, and you have to grease them up a little bit.
Yep.
That's a good thing to know when whatever foam you get, to check it in the water to see whether or not it absorbs water to begin with. And if it does, you have to be sure you dress it with something, or it's not going to last real long on top.
Yep, for sure. Watershed is good for those as well. And that's like a permanent solution, but you need it to let it dry for like 24 hours.
What product is Watershed?
I think I have it. All right, let me turn my camera.
Real similar to gink or whatever,
Yep.
too, and feel and stuff, but it's more permanent.
I don't know if you could see it.
Okay, so this is specifically made for fly fishing.
Yes, and I
Gotcha.
got this and it's a hairline product. So just like some of the stuff that you had, it's Watershed. It's a permanent thing, but you do have to treat it for 24 hours before you use it. So that's something that I would use on mine the night before and then go out there. And even though it says permanent, it does last a lot longer than just like the grease that we normally do. Eventually, I do add some more floating to it, but this does really good on sealing some of that porous foam.
I've heard Rain-X works pretty good too.
I've heard that too.
I haven't tried it yet. That's what I've heard. So.
All right, any other questions for Jim? All right, if not, does anyone else want to tie before I start tying?
I have one that I could show.
Go for it, Walt.
It's basically, I don't know if you can see it, but I just took foam and I glued it together.
Just bring it back a little bit towards it. There you go.
And put eyes on it. And it's pretty effective on the flooring.
Oh, yeah, foam popper.
Yeah, good for bass.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
yeah, you can't go wrong with that.
I made one that I realized I really screwed up with the foam.
But the-
Put everything in backwards, you know? But it is kind of neat looking just to sit on the desk. And I did, I don't know if anybody ever realized, but when you put eyes on it, it seems like it's a little more attractive that the bluegill or other fish go after it when they have eyes on it.
Yep.
How do you mount the foam on your hook, Walt?
What I do is, I don't know if you can see it, I slice it and then I lay the hook in it and then put some super glue on the top of it.
Yeah, I do a similar sort of thing, but I use a bodkin and I heat it up and basically use the hot bodkin to run a hole through it and then slide the hook through that.
That's a cool idea too.
And that works pretty well.
Well, I have a scalpel from when I worked in the OR. And I use scalpels just to slice
Yeah.
stones. I guess you can get them in a hobby shop or whatever, but
It would seem like slicing it would allow you to get the glue all the way down along the hook. I've tried some where you punch a hole and push it through, and you can still spin around that hook shank pretty easy with that foam, because you just
Yeah.
really can't get much glue or anything except at the
well,
very,
it doesn't move. It stays there, Roger.
I know, because you have access to the whole hook shank when you glue it
Yeah.
together, so you get a lot of glue between the foam and the hook.
It's something that doesn't take, you can't do it in 5 minutes. So
Yeah, that was,
what I usually do is have a production line going. And one day I'll put, I'll stamp out with a punch all the different foams. And then I'll put the eyes on it. And then the next day I'll put the hook in it. And then glue it, let it sit for a day. And then I can start with putting the legs in and everything.
Well, that one, Walt, looks like you ought to be out fishing off of the coral reef finding Nemo. It looks like with its
yeah,
horizontal stripes, it looks like a saltwater
saltwater
tropical
fishing.
fish.
But the poppers really work here at the house.
Good. Any other questions? All right, if not, anyone else want to tie before I hop on? All right, I will hop
for it.
on. Okay, I'm just pinning myself as well. I do have a beetle, but I know just Jim did his spider, so it's close. So I'll give a break on the foam for a little bit, but I'll just do something real quick that I tried it to see if the trout would like it. It's good as a chaser pattern. I don't know if you see that. It's almost like a rainbow colored nymph.
Yeah.
I now use that as like an attractor fly when I fly or fish at Bennett. Yeah, outside of this, I will then tie a dropper off it like an 18 zebra midge. And so the trout will come and look at this, they're attracted to it, they come by it. I've never had them hit this even when I tried as a single, but they do come up to take a look at it and usually see the midge, they grab that on the way. So this is just a neat little tractor pattern that I did for that. But then one time I was practicing it in a lake near my house and the bluegill went nuts for it. So you want to just try a fun little pattern. It's got some fluorescent in there, and that's what I'll tie right now. Hook size. So again, this is that wholesale fly company that I like. It's their model 28, and I'm going to use a size 10. I put them in these little pill bottles to make it a little bit easier. And I also have rainbow tungsten slotted beads, again from wholesale. So that's what I use to start. And let me get that up there. Now, any base thread would do good. I do like that Semperfli that I talked to you guys before on. It is very thin. Will not build up any material on it, but I kind of like this as the ribbing on it, where it makes it nice and distinct. But as you see, I'm putting this on right now, and there is like no buildup of body to it. But I'm going to do a little something a little different. This is kind of how I tied the ribbing on the clink hammer that I used for that fly competition. So I'm just going to build a little bit of a body, not much, but I'm just trying to bring this to the end. And I'll stop about there. I'm going to put my half hitch in there and secured it way at the bottom. I don't know if it's hard to see it. It's so thin. I don't have the best shirt. But now I'm going to loop this off my vise and out of the way. Now I will take 3 different fluorescent thread, and this one, it looks like a orange or pink. And I will start this near the head. Get rid of the tag. And I'm just going to take this to the very back. I'm just going to really only worry about the very back of it. I want to make sure I see some good fluorescent color. Try to spin this and make it a little bit flat. I'm just trying to make a nice little thread body there. And I'm not going to worry about building up towards the front. I'm just going to get this back to the front. Do a half hitch once. Now I'm actually going to cut that off. Since my orange and pink look really close, I'm going to separate it with a fluorescent green. And again, I'm just going to build that up, but I'm not going to go to the end because I want to keep that orange that I was using as the material there. So I will stop there and build up from here. I'm just trying to cover the orange and the black thread and try to make it look like a little bit of a taper. It kind of looks good. And then the same, I will do a couple half hitches. Lock that in place. Cut. I'm going to go with the hot pink I have. Again, fluorescent. It's 140 UTC, and that's just different colors of the same thread. Again, I don't want to cover up the greens, so now I'm just going to continue with the body and try to do a little tapered. And I think I'll call that good. Again, I'll do a couple half loops. And what's a half hitch down towards the end? I don't want it at the hook bend. But there, I have a couple there. So that's the body. Now that I still have my black connected at the end. Hopefully you could see this. Now I'm going to put some ribbing on it. I'll do tight wraps at the very beginning. Then as I move up, I'll make them a little bit more spaced. So now it looks like the ribbing of a zebra midge. You can kind of see that. I do plan on getting a new camera soon. While we were at Bennett, I'm just putting a couple half hitches in there. I was a guest tire for the Mayfly project, and they had a great camera. And so I got info on it. So I'll be purchasing that soon. So it'll look a lot better. So I cut that off, and then to make sure all that stays in place and that you can use this fly for a long time, I like Solaris Bone Dry. The label kind of ripped off, but again, it's just a UV cure resin. And I just put a nice little coat on that. And that will protect this fly where you'll have unlimited uses on this, no matter how many times those bluegill get it. It'll protect, so I'm not going to try to blind you, but I've got the UV resin. Cool thing is, I don't know if, yeah, it's too bright with the fluorescent, it gives a really cool glow. But there it is. So that's, if you like to nymph fish and want to try something with bluegill, you could do that. Even zebra midges work with them, they'll eat anything, but this is a cool little pattern that I tried to see if the trout would like it. They didn't, but the bluegill did. So that's the first one that I have for you today.
So how do you fish that? Do you retrieve it, or do you fish it under an indicator, or what?
I do it under an indicator. Basically, I wanted to try to practice my roll cast, and Bennett and Merrimack is a little bit too far, but I have a couple local lakes near my house. So that's what I was practicing with that. And bluegill were just tearing up. So almost kind of like we were talking about stripping in a gurgler or a foam bug. I'd flip it out there and just let it sink under the indicator. And then I'd start stripping it in, along the shoreline and, watch the indicator drop. Now they're a whole lot different than trout, where you might see a little dip with the indicator. The bluegill will bury that indicator underwater. So when you see it go, you got them. They hold on for dear life, and they give you all the time in the world to kind of set the hook on them. So, but it started off with me just trying to practice on roll casts with an indicator and a nymph. And, while I was practicing on that, I started catching bluegill. So that's how that all started.
And did you say there was a name to that fly, or is that just something you made up?
Something I made up. We could call it rainbow nymph. I was playing around one day and I've never seen it, but thought it was just kind of fun. Like I said, the trout really didn't care for it. Maybe next time I go, they might, but usually what I use it as an attractor, where off the top, I will actually then tie a dropper of a zebra midge size 18 off that. And so I will see the trout kind of run up to this, but within a foot, they take a look and they're not interested. But then shortly after, the indicator will drop because they've picked up on the midge. So it's a neat attractor pattern, but it also works for bluegill.
On the bead itself, Mick, can you use like is there a bead that would let it float a little?
To make it float?
Well, a tungsten bead would just sink like a rock.
And I bring it straight down. It's, you know, that's exactly what I'm trying to do is get it down deep. And, you know, some of the fish are sitting down lower by, you know, the lake bed, you know, and that's where I picked them up. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a floating fly, you know, what Jim had and then what I'll tie next, it's just a different take on a foam beetle. It's similar to Jim. You can almost say the same thing, but I'm just going to do a different tying techniques on a couple of neat different ways of doing it. But for this, yeah, I want to drop it down, and it's just kind of like, you know, the days when we were kids with a cane pole and a bobber and putting a worm at the end with a split shot and dropping it down deep and waiting for that bobber to drop. This is just a fly fishing version of that. Any questions? All right, so I will try to tie one more. This is very similar to what Jim already had, but I will tie it. It's just a neat little foam beetle. Used a little bit different materials, and so I'll just talk about different techniques on what you could do. All of it works good, but again, this is your fly. Tie it the way you want. These are just a couple of neat little tricks that I saw, and you can try as well. I know Jim used the standard dry fly, and I do have those, and I tie them with both, but I'm going to try something different. So this is size 12 dry fly, and I don't know if you can kind of see, here's, you know, the hook gap compared to what I will be using. There's a little bit more of a hook gap here, so maybe a little bit better hookup, not too sure, but I kind of do like the hook gap to hope with, you know, better hookups. And so basically that's the same hook that I was using to tie that nymph. It's actually a nymph hook size 10, but it also works really well for this. The foam actually will keep it up. With the watershed, it kind of helps it, but eventually these will start sinking, but I kind of tie mine with a lot of orange that you can kind of see it. So again, just a little spin on it. I will, instead of using a dry hook, I will be using a nymph hook. And I'm going to tie just to get the thread body going. And I will just go along that straight of the shank. I won't even attempt to try to go down below the bend of the hook. I'm just going to use that little bit right there. Now, foam. As you know, Jim showed, you could buy the foam from any of the fly shops. It's a little bit more expensive. You can go to Hobby Lobby, Michael's, that works. But what I like using is you can get this stack of all these different colors at Walmart. And this is only half of the stack that I think I got, and it was $10. And so there's all sorts of colors you want. And the cool thing with this is you can see here's yellow, but you see the white here. That's actually backing where, if I can get this off, I have to use a bodkin, but that's actually sticky back there. There it is. Where you could peel this, and now you got a glue there. So you could actually combine different colors by just putting them together. So if you wanted yellow and pink, you could do that. As you saw, my favorite color that I like is, I've stuck this together, and you can see I've used some punches where the orange for high visibility and then like a black body. I could do brown as well. But again, here's one of the black sheets that I had. It just has the glue backing, so you could choose your colors. So this is what I've been using. Is you can see all these nice little punches. You could do this several different ways. I'd say the cheapest way, and probably it just works just as good as anything, is what Jim said, where you just could kind of cut, you know, your strips just with scissors. You want to get a little fancy, you could get these foam beetle body cutters. The good news is you could get these on Amazon. These are finally coming down in price. I think they're under $20 now. They were close to 30 when I first started looking at them. You'll get a nice little wood stamp. You got to be real careful because you could see the beetle body, but that is basically a razor blade. And they give you a little cutting tool where, you know, I can't show you, you know, you would put this at the back of it, and then you would actually then press this on a hard table. You press it really hard, just rock it a little bit, and it'll come in. What'll happen is, if I kind of try to put this in, the body will actually still be kind of stuck in the razor blade. Absolutely don't try to dig it out. Use a bodkin and just kind of put it out, because these things are extremely sharp. So this is a neat little way, and then you can, as you see, you get this nice, even, perfect body. That works if you want to do it. It's, as I said, a little pricey, but if you feel like it, you can go that route. Even Amy brought up one time, if you want, you know, if your wife's into crafting like mine was, can remember the old paper cutters, but this is a small version where it has its little cutter, and you can kind of put your foam piece in. If I can do this backwards. Let me try this one sheet. And you can see, let me just line that up, then you could just make your little cuts. This is a little bit too big, but if you don't want to cut, you could use this. This one was kind of free. My wife's still looking for it, so don't tell her. But that works as well. Or if you want the easiest and cheapest, you already have a bunch of scissors, just cut out your section that you need and you'll be just fine. Size that you cut.
Knife and a ruler works pretty good too.
Say again?
Craft knife and a ruler.
Yep. Yeah, utility knife. Again, you know, the foam cutter is nice and it kind of does make little pretty little designs, but not necessary. So I will tie this in now. And this is always kind of, I always have to remember where I have to do orange down, because eventually that will be folded up on top. And normally, like we saw John and Jim cutting the foam to make a little tie-in point. These have them right here already pre-made if you use the cutter. So I'm gonna just kind of put this in, just kind of wrap it in. And again, I put it where, you know, we all make mistakes, just like Walt showed us. I've tied these backwards so many times. So Jim used the Crystal Flash thread. You could use Peacock Herl, or you could use dubbing. I do like the ice dubbing black. It does look black, but I see a lot of green in there as well. It almost looks like a deeper peacock. And I will add some dubbing to that, just a little dubbing. Try not to make it super tight because I do want this to be kind of buggy. And I will now just start wrapping and creating a nice little body with it. Try not to get too close to the eye because I don't want to crowd it. But there we go. So there's the body. And what I will do now is kind of bend it back. But now I will kind of lock in that head. As you see, it does want to spin on you. So I kind of put a couple loose wraps and then tug down tight on it. Again, like Jim was saying, after I'm done, I will always put a little bit of glue at the bottom of that. So that's where I am so far. You can kind of see the dubbing. It's got a nice little sheen to it. And top of the body, all orange for your visibility, but fish will only see the black like that. Legs, again, really can't beat the rubber legs. So Jim's spot on with that. There are different kinds. I just take a little strip and I will cut this in half and then add the 2 legs on. And if you want, you could kind of crank in, but I try not to too much because it brings in the legs a little bit too much. So I just gently kind of bring those just to where I like it. As you can see from the top view, we'll do those as well. Not too tight. That's good. I will lift the head and do a couple wraps underneath. I do not whip finish this. I do use the bodkin. It has that little opening at the end, so I'll do a couple half hitches and just slide that over the head of the hook or the eye of the hook and bring it in. Just cut that little bit off. And like Jim said, you do want to put a little bit of, trim the legs as you want, but you do want to put a little glue. And the neat little thing that I found, most of the fly shops have this. It has this little tube, thin tube with a stopper, and you could put some glue in there and this will get it right to the area you want. And you don't have to worry about getting messed up too much. So I'll just kind of put a little dab of glue on my thread, lock that in, then on top as well. After letting that sit, that'll dry up, and probably after 15 minutes, it'll be dry. And then again, as I was talking, if you want to use a watershed, lock the whole thing up and you are good to go. So just a different take, different techniques on the foam bug. And those work really well as well. Again, there are so many different ways you could do it. I just want to show a different technique, but all do well. Any questions on that?
That's great. I like it.
Yep, you could, again, these work great for bluegill. And if you want to take it to the trout park, you want to use a hopper dropper, this works just fine. I mean, it works as great as an indicator. When we were at Bennett 2 weekends ago, some of the guys from Leavenworth were commenting that their indicators were getting hit, but not the nymph below it. So you start seeing that a lot. You might want to try something like this, give them something to hit that they nail your indicator, you could hook them. So, and then what I kind of like too is you see there's a nice hook gap in there that your legs and all your dubbing won't impede the hook up to the fish. So any questions?
Yeah, let me ask you guys.
Sure.
And most of us have had that happen to us where the trout comes up and hits the indicator and you can't catch them below. Has anybody ever had any success fishing something that you thought might look like the indicator and actually catch one of those things? Because I've thrown on dry flies and anything that I thought looked anything like my indicator, and I never caught a fish that way.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I've had a couple look-sees, but never really hit it. And then I go back to my thingamabobber or my airlock, and the thing gets nailed every time. I need to find how to tie that looks like a thingamabobber.
Yeah, exactly.
Jim, I actually have. I was using the it's like an Australian indicator, and they were going after that thing like crazy. And I just happened to have a balsa popper in my box that was about the exact same color and about the exact same size. And I tied it on as my indicator, and sure in hell, I got all kinds of hits on it. So
Okay, there we go. We got something to strive for now.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, it was the strangest thing I've ever seen in my life. That only happened to me one time. So
Hey, I have something. Dave and other people have talked about this um, what is it called?
A
Hookkeeper?
snelled hook holder.
Yeah, hook holder. Thank you. Thank you. But the ones I got from Amazon were too long. So I cut this much off the bottom and then used the UV glue and glued the hell out of. I had to actually cut the bottom off so I could reapply the bottom to the bottom of this now. And it will now fit in my vest.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So FYI.
Necessity is the mother of invention, isn't it, Terry?
Necessity sure is a mother.
I've got a question for everybody. I'm going to be heading through Montana. Maybe a month from now.
Poor guy.
Anybody's got any tips or places, we're going through Bozeman, just all the way across the state of guides you've used or locations maybe that you fished or any starting points?
Yeah. Roger, when I went to Montana last year, we were up by Great Falls is where we stayed, but if you're going up on the Missouri, it's called Wolf Creek, I think it is. They have the boats up there. If you're a veteran, in Minning Waters, they'll give you a free boat for the day. So.
Okay, well,
Advice.
text you or call you, see if you've got any phone numbers or anything else.
I do somewhere if you can.
Ken House has got all that.
That's what I was gonna say. Give Ken House a call because he has all the contacts out there.
And Roger, all you got to do
Roger,
now
if you're-
is get
Roger,
Judy to row for you.
Right.
If you're coming through Nebraska, Roger, if you're coming through Nebraska, which you probably won't, but out near Ogallala, you can fish the North Platte River coming out of Lake Ogallala, and there's 3 and 4 pound rainbows in there on some of the weirs. So
All right.
they will take scuds like crazy.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Work. All right.
Are you going to be going out 80, Roger?
Well, we're gonna kind of go straight up through Minnesota and then take 90 all the way across.
Oh, okay.
Stop. If you're going to do that, then stop up in the driftless area.
Yeah, I'm unfamiliar with that too, but we're going up to the headwaters of the Mississippi up there
Yeah.
at Itasca or something. Lake will be up there for a few days. So,
Northeast Iowa, southwest Wisconsin, southeast Minnesota is the driftless area. And it's some of the best trout fishing I've ever had in my life. So
I'll take any hints of guides or anything else that's been up there. You've been up there once or twice, haven't you, Jim?
I went up there one time. We stayed in Viroqua, and there's a fly shop there, the Driftless Angler, and they're great people and they have great information. And I mean, there is just a wild trout spring creek about every place you throw a rock and you hit one. It's just they're everywhere. It's the type of place that the springs the creeks are very small. And pretty much if you get to an access and you see a car there, you just head on to the next access because, there's just that many places to fish that nobody wants to crowd anybody out. So it's a great place.
Hey, Roger, Pitchford has gone up to Decorah, Iowa, several times. You might want to get a hold of him, talk to him about that.
there's a campground in Socorro, Roger, and that I've stayed at, and I'll see if I can find. I saw the name the other day, and I can't remember what it was, but I'll send it to you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Very cool. So good info. Any quest for flies next week? I know we started some of the warm water. Anyone else want to continue? I don't know. Any bass fishermen want to do bass flies or
It
anything?
don't sound bad.
What's that?
Bass flies don't sound bad at all.
All right, let's do that. We'll tie some bass flies. I will get the email out tomorrow. And in that email about the Zoom call for the following week, I will be asking you guys for any local waters you want to fish. You know, just let me know because I've started my list of, it's already May, so I gotta start planning us some events. I do have some out there, but nothing for May. June 4th that's fish free at Merrimack. So we will be look for an invite for that. But I just want to get these dates out so that way you have plenty of time to reserve those dates. So I'm not last minute dropping these, you guys missing good fish outings. So that's June 4th. There is no events in July and August that I know of.
Yeah, there is.
Montauk-
Yeah, there is, Nick.
What's that?
There is one in August. Nobody knows about it yet, so I'm gonna pop it on you guys tonight.
Okay,
The Great Plains Bonefish Tournament is on for this year. We are renaming it.
okay.
Just a minute.
Good, glad to see it coming back. Hopefully you get some more water in the lake.
It'll be the Charles Baswell Great Bonefish Tournament.
Oh, nice.
So it's going to be dedicated to Charles. He was a huge, huge advocate of that tournament.
Okay,
So it's back this year. It'll be at Lake Ogallala on the weekend of August 20th. And I will be sending out through Mike, probably within the next 2 weeks or so, invitations to all the program leads in the region to nominate some folks. And I don't know yet how many people we're going to be able to accept, but I'm thinking we can probably, right now I've got 10 guys lined up. So that means we can probably take 20 vets. So we'll see.
cool. We look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
So cool, August 20th. And where is that again?
Okay, it'll be Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Ogallala, Nebraska.
Okay,
And I'll be getting an email out with all the specifics as soon as I get. The only thing I'm waiting on now is the cost breakdown from the folks in Ogallala to tell me what it's going to cost us to put it on. So then we can
Okay.
decide how many people to put up.
that sounds like a good time. So keep us informed.
Yep, we'll do.
There you go. We have a long trip for us in St. Louis in August weekend. So let me know, maybe if you're interested, we could even carpool if we wanted. So that good. We have something in August, September. It's a shame. They got back-to-back Montauk, September 10th, and Roaring River, September 17th are their vet fish free days. So they're back-to-back. And I know Roaring River, I'll put it out there, but that is quite a hike for us. But neat little place. I think I've only fished it once back when I was a spin fisherman. So I know there is a waiting area, but it's a multi-use area. You might see kids running around in there while you're trying to fly fish, but it was a nice park. And they actually have some of those Palomino trout that they put in there. I think that's the only state park that we have that actually puts those out there. And I've seen some mass of trout come out of there. So something to think about if you want to make that trip out there. But so
Long camping week and a half or something, just keep on going, right?
yeah, keep on going if you want to go for a full week of camping, which I'm looking at that date. I might just do that just because I was working on my schedule at work today, trying to see what test events we have with the Air Force. And I think September is wide open. I think we're doing something in August and something in October. So I got September right in the middle of that.
What about the 11th? What is it, 11 River? What is it called?
11 Point.
11 Point?
Yeah, do we have anything or is there anything down there going on?
I haven't seen anything, but I'm writing it down right now, trying to figure out places that everyone would want to go. My biggest thing is, yeah, I might be the PL, but we're all volunteers. This isn't my club, this is our club. So I kind of want to know where you guys want to go too. It's just, I'm the one that will send out the invites, but I pretty much call it all, we're even Steven here, so.
Well, all I want to know, I have heard about the place. I have no knowledge of it at all.
It's the same with me, and I've heard good things about it, so let me do some research, find out more where it is, and if it's something that we could possibly do. But other areas I've kind of marked for like day trips. We still have Lane Spring, which I think all of us love going there. Bush Wildlife, so it's a little bit closer, and several different lakes. You know, we could always stay with 16 or try different lakes. Suisun Park, we started talking about that. I've never been there, but I've known that our program has visited there before. And then is there like, I think it's called Tillis Park. I kind of went out on the web and just put good spots in St. Louis.
Yeah, I don't think you want to fish Tillis Park.
No?
No, I mean,
Okay.
that water is not very good, and there is just very little areas to back cast. You know, 20, 30 years ago, it was fun to catch and release, you know, the winter trout program, but, you know, they've planted trees all the way around, and it's just, and the water is a mess, and
Okay.
I would say Tillis Park is not a fun place to go.
Okay, and that's what I'm looking for. You know, I'm trying to, you know, we usually do the same, you know, we do Huzzah, Lane Spring, Bush Wildlife. So it's, you know, if
Dave, what was that reservoir that you took guys out to that one time? There's,
that was a good one.
What about Thomas Hill Reservoir?
I don't know where that is, but I'll look it up.
I fished.
It's about 3 hours from here.
It's up by Moberly.
Oh, so it's a long trip. Okay, yeah, I'm looking for more St. Louis, a little bit closer areas that, you know, within no more than an hour. That way we could do quick day trips where we don't have to worry about overnights if we have to. So we'll have some of those long trips, but I'm looking, again, I'll send out an email. Think about it. If you know any areas near you, even we've got a couple guys on the Illinois side. I don't mind going across the river and fishing your waters as well. So think of something, let me know, because it's kind of fun to try new waters as well. So we have our favorites, but let's try something different. I'll let you guys go. We're already 20 minutes past. I'll get an email out tomorrow with a Zoom call. We will be doing bass flies next week, and look for that email for any suggestions. That's all I got. Any last comments before I call it night?
Thanks, Mick.
All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a good week, guys.
good
All right,
seeing
you guys
everybody.
take care.
All right.
If you guys catch any big fish, let us know.
See you, Roger.
All right, see you guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.